After discovering my daughter-in-law's shocking words, I unveiled an incredible 24-hour challenge. Frank's hands were deep in an engine, but his heart was in his throat. For a man who had spent his life working as a mechanic, listening to engines hum and sputter had become second nature. But today, as he twisted a wrench, the sounds of his son Jake and daughter-in-law Mia flowed through the open kitchen door. It felt intrusively intimate, her frustration swirling in the air around him, piercing his stoic demeanor. "I don't want to fail like my parents did," Mia's voice trembled. Each word felt like a punch to Frank's gut. He hadn't heard the door creak open. It was like he was eavesdropping on their very souls. 2 years after losing his beloved wife, the ache of grief was warm compared to what he felt hearing Mia's confession. In that moment, he realized that even amidst the chirping birds and smiling neighbors of Maplewood, the shadows of doubt lurked in the hearts of those he loved. The American dream, once vibrant and alive, felt cracked and fading. Compelled by a surge of protectiveness and hope, Frank brushed grease from his hands and resolved to shake things up. The next day, he proposed a 24-hour challenge, a series of tasks that would introduce them to the everyday struggles of those in need, the ones living outside their perfect zip code. Jake raised a skeptical eyebrow, while Mia felt a spark of curiosity mingled with anxiety. They were drawn into Frank's idea, though apprehension simmered beneath the surface. The first task landed them at the local food pantry, a place buzzing with hushed stories and huskier voices. Frank led them in, and the trio was quickly enveloped by bacon smells and the sight of paper bags. As they distributed food, Frank noticed the invisible barriers some families faced, fraught with dignity yet underlined by desperation. Mia's heart ached for a single mother standing in line, hands clutching her child's as tears streamed down her face. "How heartbreaking this is," Mia whispered. Frank felt an old-fashioned belief churning inside his chest. He disagreed with Mia's softer approach. They ended up feuding over how they should respond. Was it pity or empathy? Words turned sharp as frictions unveiled forgotten resentments. They had come in seeking understanding, but the more they faced, the more the generational divide yawned. Just as the air between them began to lighten, Frank's phone buzzed, a call from an old friend facing eviction. A moment of silence filled their faces, with Frank torn. Should he drop everything to help or stay the course with his family? His heart raced, wrestling between loyalty and duty. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the hours ticked down, Frank felt the weight of family expectations and the pains of their shared history pushing against the walls of his heart, leaving everyone hanging in a tangled web of uncertainty. Would they find strength together, or would this challenge unveil a chasm too wide to bridge? The ticking clock whispered doubt, but Frank stood on the precipice of hope, desperate for connection, yet haunted by the fear that the truths they unearthed could forever alter their family ties. The food pantry hummed with a mix of chatter and the rustle of plastic bags. Sounds that once felt routine were now charged with new meaning for Frank, Jake, and Mia. As they approached the next family in line, Jake's brow furrowed in concentration. "What do we say to them?" he questioned, glancing at Frank for guidance. Frank's thoughts flickered back to the old days when he used to help his parents at community events. "Just be genuine," he urged, his voice low but firm. "They need to feel seen." But even as he spoke, he felt the weight of their challenge hanging over them like a storm cloud, just waiting to burst. "Hey, how are you doing today?" Mia asked the next mother in line, her voice soft yet steady. Watching her interact, Frank saw the initial fear melt away from Mia's face. There was a glimmer of strength he'd never noticed before. As she exchanged a few comforting words with the mother, the woman's tense shoulders began to relax. It was a small victory, but Frank could feel it in his chest. It sparked something inside him, a belief that this challenge might just be changing them all. But the moment was short-lived. Jake's phone buzzed violently in his pocket, pulling him from the warmth of connection. He answered quickly, his expression darkening as he listened intently. Frank watched the tension gather on his son's face, the growing concern that mirrored his own indecision from earlier. "I can't just leave her," Jake muttered to the caller, his hands clenching. Frank felt his heart sink. His son's loyalty was commendable, but it felt like a rift was forming again. "Jake," Frank began cautiously, hoping to steer his son back without judgment.
We're in the middle of something important here. It's my friend, Dad, Jake snapped, the frustration evident in his voice. Frank could see the desperation in his son's eyes. The two worlds were colliding, family responsibility and loyalty to friends. Bites of social media advice screamed for actionable empathy, yet face-to-face confrontation brought another layer entirely. Mia stepped in, her eyes wide, a mix of concern and fear.
Jake, maybe you can help her after this. We have a commitment. But before she could finish, Jake shook his head vigorously. What if she really needs me? I can't just leave. The urgency in his voice resonated, echoing Frank's initial inner turmoil. Seeing both Mia and Jake so divided cut deeper than any wrench or engine he'd ever tackled. Seeing the strain between them, Frank took a deep breath and felt the shift in the dynamics. How about this, he proposed, interrupting the troubled silence. You go help your friend, and Mia and I will finish the tasks here. But we all need to commit here and now. If we walk away, it undermines everything we're trying to do. Jake hesitated, the conflict evident on his face. He glanced between his father and Mia, caught in an emotional tug-of-war. Frank could almost hear the gears turning in his son's mind, weighing responsibility against loyalty. I don't know, Dad. I don't want to let anyone down. This was the crux, Frank realized. Their challenge wasn't just about confronting the life of others. It was about confronting themselves, how far they would go for each other, how deeply they valued those bonds. As Jake wrestled with the decision, Frank couldn't help but wonder, what would Jake choose? Would following the twin paths of loyalty and family create a ripple of change, or fracture their fragile unity forever? His heart raced as he awaited the answer, uncertain of what lay ahead for them all. Jake's silence stretched, a thick tension hanging in the air. The pantry buzzed around them, but all he could hear was the pounding of his heart. Every second felt like it pulled him further into a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. He glanced back at Mia, who was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite interpret. Encouragement? Disappointment? Jake, Frank said, his voice lower this time, more pleading. Look, I get it. Your friend might need you, but we're here to help too. It matters. Does it? Does it really matter? Jake shot back, frustration bubbling over. She's counting on me right now. What if something bad's happening? Frank took a half step forward, closing the space between them, his own fear mixing with a father's instinct. And what if we're needed here? You can't be everywhere at once. You have to choose what matters right now. There was a flicker of understanding in Jake's eyes, and for a brief moment, Frank felt hope swell in his chest. Maybe they were breaking through the barriers that had built up over the last few months. Listen, Mia chimed in, her voice unwavering despite the tension. Helping these families is important. We're not just passing out food, we're giving them hope. Don't you want to be a part of that? I do, Jake admitted, the fire in his eyes dimming slightly. But it feels like I'm letting someone down. Trust me, Frank said gently. You won't let anyone down by being here. You can make a difference in ways you wouldn't even imagine. With every passing moment, Jake's resolve wavered. He looked again at the family they were serving. A young girl clutched her mother's hand, her wide, questioning eyes glued to the shelves of food. If only Jake could see that girl, that could be the face of a future he could help shape. Finally, he exhaled sharply. Okay, I'll stay, but you have to promise me we'll go check on her after this. I can't just leave her hanging. Frank felt relief wash over him. We'll check on her, I promise, but right now we need you, he replied, a genuine smile breaking across his face. Mia let out a small sigh of relief. Great, now let's get to work. As they moved to the next family, Jake found his footing. He began to ask questions, his confidence building with each interaction. Frank watched him transform right before his eyes, slowly breaking away from the chains of indecision. He realized how important this moment was, not just for Jake, but for all of them. The sense of camaraderie grew as they navigated through the busy pantry. Every shared laugh, every moment of connection with others seemed to heal old wounds within their family. There was a lightness in Jake's step now, a willingness to embrace something larger than himself. But just as the warmth wrapped around them, Jake's phone buzzed again, interrupting the moment. He pulled it out, and Frank could see the instant shadow cross his son's brow. What now? Jake hissed under his breath, his fingers trembling slightly as he answered. Frank exchanged worried glances with Mia. Whatever was happening on the other end of the line felt urgent, almost desperate. Jake? Mia leaned in, trying to catch a glimpse of what was unfolding. I gotta go, Jake said suddenly, his voice tense, his face pale. Frank's heart rate quickened. Their fragile balance was teetering again, threatening to topple over. He had hoped they were finally on the same page, but now uncertainty clawed its way back in.
Wait, he said firmly, grabbing Jake's arm. You can't leave now. We're almost finished, and... Jake shook his head fiercely, eyes wide with panic. But I can't just ignore this. What if she really needs me? In that instant, Frank realized the answer was slipping away as quickly as Jake had found his strength. The question loomed heavy in the air. Would Jake choose loyalty to his friend at the risk of abandoning the commitment they had just built? The weight of the moment felt unbearable. Would their family weather this storm together, or would it shatter them into pieces anew? Just think about it, okay? Jake whispered, already moving away, urgency in every step as Frank called after him, desperate to reel him back. Jake moved through the pantry with a blur of urgency, his heart racing. Frank's voice trailed behind him like a distant echo, but all he could focus on was the phone still pressed to his ear.
The worry in his friend's voice was palpable, each syllable sending jolts of apprehension through Jake's veins. "Jake, you need to get here fast," Sam's voice crackled through the speaker. "It's serious. Something's wrong with Amy. You won't believe what happened." "Just tell me," Jake urged, his breath coming in short gasps as he stepped out of the pantry, leaving the comforting hustle and bustle behind him. "What did she say? What's going on?" "Just come," Sam pleaded, the rising panic evident in his tone. "It's like she thinks someone's after her." The words sent a cold wave over Jake. Amy had always been fiery, never easily scared. The thought of her feeling threatened gnawed at his insides. He glanced back at Frank, the air between them thick with unspoken words. But Jake couldn't linger. He needed to be with Amy. "I'm on my way," Jake said, shifting into a sprint as he exited the building. The fresh air hit him like a wave, a stark contrast to the warmth inside. He wouldn't let anything happen to her, not again. As he sped down the street, a whirlwind of thoughts tossed around in his mind. Why hadn't Amy reached out to him before this? How long had she been feeling scared? The feeling of helplessness gripped him tighter than ever. He dialed again, desperation creeping into his voice. "Sam, where are you guys?" "Back at the apartment," Sam replied. "Just hurry." The familiar sight of the apartment building loomed ahead, but Jake could hardly register it, his focus laser sharp. He burst through the lobby doors, ignoring the surprised glances from tenants. Before he could even take a breath, he sped up the stairs, each step pounding beneath him like the frantic rhythm of his heart. When he reached the door, it was ajar. Jake pushed it open. Sam stood in the living room, wide-eyed, worry etched on his face. "She's in the bedroom. She won't talk to anyone." "Why not?" Jake's voice cracked, the depth of his concern weighing heavily in the air. "I don't know. She just keeps saying she's scared, that someone is coming for her. It didn't make sense. I tried to get her to explain, but she just shut down." A sense of dread washed over Jake, rooting him to the spot. He moved towards the bedroom slowly, dread piercing through every breath he took. The door creaked when he pushed it open. Amy sat on the edge of the bed, her hands trembling, eyes glazed over with a fear he had never seen in her before. "Jake," she whispered, tears pooling in the corners of her eyes. He rushed to her, kneeling down to meet her gaze. "What happened?" he asked, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. "You can tell me anything." Her gaze darted to the window, and she leaned in closer to him. "It's just, there's something I didn't want to tell you." The words hung in the air like a dark cloud, and Jake's chest tightened. He knew, whatever it was, it could change everything. Would he have enough strength to handle it? "Please," he urged softly, "just tell me the truth." As the silence stretched, Jake held his breath, waiting for the revelation that could shatter their world, and whether he was ready for such a reality hung in the balance. Just then, a sharp knock echoed in the hallway that made them both jump. The knocking became urgent. "Jake, are you in there?" Jake's head snapped toward the door, a growing sense of unease creeping in. Who was it? And did it have anything to do with what Amy was about to reveal? "Jake!" He looked back at Amy, questions swirling in his mind. Would this be the moment everything changed? "Wait here," he whispered, slowly approaching the door, heart racing and feeling more uncertain than ever. Jake's breathing quickened as he neared the door, each knock sending jolts of anxiety through him. What if it was someone who could put Amy in even more danger? He took a deep breath, bracing himself before cautiously turning the knob. The door swung open, revealing an anxious Sam, his eyes wide and fearful. "You have to listen to me," he said, stepping inside before Jake could respond. "She's not just scared. She knows something. I think it's about someone she mentioned on her phone last week." The urgency in Sam's voice sliced through Jake's panic. "What do you mean?" he pressed, trying to keep his voice steady. "Who is it?" "I don't know. Just, you need to talk to her.
We can't figure this out without her fully opening up. Jake nodded and moved aside, letting Sam slip into the room. Both men turned their attention to Amy, whose gaze remained fixed on the floor, shadowed by confusion and fear. "Hey, Amy," Sam said gently. "We want to help you. Can you tell us who's after you?" As if hearing him for the first time, Amy's eyes flickered up. "I didn't mean for you two to find out like this," she murmured, her voice a shaky whisper. "Amy, please," implored Jake. "You need to tell us. Whatever it is, we can face it together." Silence hung heavily in the air. Jake's heart thudded wildly as he felt the weight of the moment. He reached for her hand, but she pulled back, fear glistening in her gaze. "I didn't want you to worry. I thought I could handle it. But now," she hesitated, breathing deeply as if trying to summon courage. "Now what?" Sam nudged gently. "There's a man. He's been following me," she finally confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was just imagining things at first, but last week I saw him outside my office, and the other day I caught him watching from across the street. I didn't want to scare you, but I don't know what to do." Jake's stomach dropped. A cold chill raced down his spine. This wasn't just about emotional troubles. It was tangible, terrifying. "Did you report him?" he asked, trying to keep his rage in check. "I couldn't. I didn't have concrete proof," Amy replied, tears spilling over. "I just don't want you to put yourself in danger over something unsubstantiated." But it was too late.
The moment she uttered those words, every protective instinct in Jake flared up. "You're not alone in this, Amy," he promised, feeling a surge of determination. "We will figure this out, and I won't let anything happen to you." The pounding in his chest was barely outdone by the urgency in his gut. He sensed that this was just the beginning, an unwelcome reminder that their lives could change in a moment. Suddenly, another knock echoed through the room. This time it felt different, more forceful, almost demanding. "Jake, let me in," a voice called, sending fresh waves of tension rippling through the trio. "Who is it?" Sam asked, glancing nervously between Jake and Amy. "I don't know," Jake murmured, a lump forming in his throat. "But we can't ignore it." "Maybe it's the person you need to protect me from," Amy said, her voice trembling. Jake could feel the panic rising again. Who was out there? Was this threat now knocking out their door? He needed to make a choice, but every option felt flawed. Taking a step back, he turned to Amy, searching her eyes for courage. "Just stay close to Sam. I'll handle this." As he moved towards the door, heart thumping in his chest, he was acutely aware that the next moments might change everything yet again. He could almost hear the echoes of that ominous threat looming outside. Ready or not, it was time to face whatever was waiting for him on the other side. Jake took another steadying breath as he reached for the doorknob. The pounding from outside grew louder, each thud echoing the apprehension swirling within him. He swung the door open, steeling himself for what lay beyond. Standing there was a tall figure cast in shadows, his features obscured by the dim hallway light. "Jake," the man said, voice gravelly and low, "I need to talk to you, right now." Jake clenched his jaw. Whoever this was, they didn't belong here. "What do you want?" he replied, the edge creeping into his voice. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," the man assured, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "My name is Ethan. Is this about Amy?" Sam interrupted, stepping protectively in front of Jake. "If you're after her, you can go." "Wait," Jake shot back, pushing Sam aside. The last thing he needed was for Amy to feel even more threatened. "Why are you here?" Ethan hesitated, glancing over Jake's shoulder at Amy, still visibly shaken by everything. "It's complicated. I was trying to protect her, but she doesn't understand," he said, eyes darting. "You really need to listen to me." "Why should we trust you?" Jake challenged, keeping his body poised for action. His mind raced through possibilities, fear pulsing at his temples. Ethan took a cautious step back. "Because I know who's been watching her, and I know why." The room fell silent, tension thick as fog. Amy took a tentative step forward, curiosity breaking through her fear. "You know?" she whispered, her voice cracking. Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. "I do." "And I think you're in real danger, Amy. I've seen him. He's dangerous, and he's been trying to get close." Jake's heart rate picked up again, anger boiling beneath his surface. "Why should you care?" he spat. "You sound like just another creep." "I'm not a creep," Ethan shot back, frustration flooding his voice. "I'm trying to make things right. Trust me or not, it won't change the fact that someone is coming for her." The tension in the room thickened. Sam leaned closer to Jake. "We should call the cops," he suggested softly. "No," Amy interjected, fear shadowing her words. "If Ethan is right, that will just make things worse." "Then what do we do?" Jake demanded, feeling the helplessness creep in. "We can't just wait around for something to happen. We don't even know if we can believe—" "Believe this," Ethan interrupted, his voice sharper now. "I found out he's linked to some serious criminal activities. He's not just an obsessed follower. He's looking for something specific, and it has to do with you, Amy." Jake's heart raced again, this time with urgency. What does he want from her? "He needs information, something that Amy unknowingly possesses," Ethan explained, locking eyes with Jake as if challenging him to understand. "You might be the key to protecting her." Confusion washed over Jake. What could I possibly have to do with any of this? "That's what we're going to figure out, but we need to act fast," Ethan urged. "I have a plan, but it requires you to trust me." Jake's mind reeled, torn between suspicion and necessity. Did they dare trust this man with Amy's safety? "What's the plan?" he asked hesitantly, adrenaline coursing through him. Ethan leaned in closer, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. "We need to draw him out. If we play our cards right, we can confront him, together." Jake looked at Amy and Sam, uncertainty brewing in his chest. Could they truly face this threat head-on? Just then, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, causing all three of them to jump. The door rattled violently, as if someone or something was trying to break in. "Get back," Jake shouted, instinct taking over. All the pieces were shifting, and he didn't know if they were ready for what was coming next. The door shook again, sending a jolt of fear through Jake. He had only just opened it, and now it felt like the whole world was crashing in around them. "We need to move," he urged, his thoughts racing. Ethan's eyes widened, and he glanced nervously at the door. "I'll barricade it," he shouted, rushing towards the heavy kitchen table. Sam joined him, the two of them shoving it against the door, while Jake turned back to Amy. "Stay close," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. She nodded, fear etched in her features, but there was also a flicker of determination. Together, they wouldn't go down without a fight. "Why is he after me?" Amy asked, her voice trembling, but there was a growing strength in the way she stood, determined to learn the truth. Ethan paused, catching his breath as he wedged the table tight against the door. "Because of what you know. It's not just about you. It's bigger than that." He looked over his shoulder, urgency in his dark gaze. "It's about a network of people who want to silence anyone who stands in their way." "Silence?" Sam echoed, disbelief mingling with fear. "Yes," Ethan replied. "And if he gets to you first, then we won't even stand a chance." The group fell silent for a moment, the noise from the door drowning out their thoughts. The pounding continued, relentless and chilling. Sweat formed on Jake's brow as he glanced back at the door. "How do we draw him out?" Ethan took a breath, shifting into problem-solving mode. "We need to make it seem like Amy has something to offer, a lure, something he can't resist. It'll force him to show himself." Jake felt a thread of panic. "But what if it doesn't work? What if we're walking into a trap?" "Then we'll know who we're dealing with for sure," Ethan replied, and there was steel in his voice. "But we can't play it safe now." Amy stepped forward, drawing everyone's attention. "I'll do it," she declared firmly. "If it means getting this over with, I can handle it." Jake turned to her, his heart racing. "No, Amy, you shouldn't." "I can't hide anymore," she interrupted, her eyes fiery. "This is my life, my future. I won't let fear control me. Not again." Jake felt something shift within him. He wanted to protect her, but her strength inspired him as much as it scared him. "Okay," he said quietly, feeling the weight of his responsibility grow. "What do we need?" Ethan smiled slightly, the tension easing from his face. "We need to prepare a fake meeting, something that'll get his attention. If we can get him to engage, we might just have a chance to trap him." As they discussed plans, the room grew darker. The pounding outside escalated to a fever pitch, adrenaline fueling the urgency. Sam started pacing, worry evident in his features. "Are we sure about this? What if this goes wrong?" "Nothing will go wrong if we plan carefully," Jake asserted, determination flooding his veins. "We're all in this together." "Together," Amy echoed, a fierce light igniting in her eyes. Suddenly, another crash echoed through the hallway, this one more forceful and violent than before. The table shifted slightly, and Jake's heart dropped. "We don't have much time," Ethan shouted, urgency punctuating his words. "Now is the time to act." Jake felt the fear creep back in, but alongside it was the undeniable urge to fight. They were standing on a precipice. The choices they made now could save them or shatter everything. "Let's do this," Jake said, determination set in his jaw. "Let's draw him out." As they strategized and made preparations, the shadows seemed to deepen around them. but Jake locked on to Amy's fierce expression, knowing that whatever happened next would change everything. The air in the room grew heavy, the ominous pounding echoing like a heartbeat of impending doom. Jake tried to focus, pushing aside the panic swelling in his chest. They had to act quickly, and that meant gathering every resource they had left. "Okay," Jake said, looking at the others. "What does Amy need to say to make this seem real?" He saw Ethan's eyes flicker with thought. The urgency of the situation sharpened their minds. "What if we make it sound like Amy has information about the network?" Ethan suggested, his voice low. "Something that could bring them down. If we imply she has a way to expose them, it'll certainly draw him in." "What if he doesn't believe it?" Sam chimed in, his brow furrowing. "What if he just comes right in? We could be putting Amy in incredible danger." "We don't have a choice," Amy replied, her determination unwavering. "If there's even a chance to stop this once and for all, I'm willing to take that risk. They can't control me anymore." Jake steadied his breath. Her courage burned bright, and he realized that he needed to reflect that strength back to her. "Okay," he said, "let's think about how we'd go about this. Any ideas on how to set the scene?" Ethan began to pace, his fingers tapping against his chin. "We'll need a place, somewhere secluded but still within earshot so we can jump in if things go south. We could set up in the park across the street. A public space will make him think he's safe." "Agreed," Jake replied, feeling a sense of camaraderie build among them. "But for the timing, we'll need to make it immediate. We can't give him time to think." "Right," Sam added, his voice trembling slightly. "We need to set it up now." With adrenaline pulsing through their veins, they moved quickly, gathering their supplies, phones, flashlights, and anything they could use to defend themselves if things went wrong. The chaos of the room transformed into purposeful movement as Jake focused on the task at hand. "Wait," Amy's voice cut through the frantic energy. "What if he doesn't show? What if he doesn't take the bait?" Jake turned to her, seeing the flicker of doubt in her eyes. He reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "He will," he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "These people are arrogant. They think they can sweep things under the rug. If there's a rumor of exposure, they won't be able to resist." As the clock ticked down, they finalized their plan, and Jake felt the weight of impending danger pressing in on them. They stepped outside into the cool night air, hearts racing, the streetlights casting long shadows across the pavement. "Remember," Ethan said, a serious edge in his voice, "the moment you see him, don't engage unless you have to."
"We'll be watching from a distance." Amy nodded, her face a mask of determination. She took a deep breath, grounding herself. "I'll make it convincing, I promise," she said, her gaze steadying. Jake stole a glance at her, fear flooding him at the thought of losing her. "Just be careful. We need you safe," he whispered. A car pulled up in the distance, headlights piercing through the dark. It was time. Jake turned back to the others. "No matter what happens, stay together. We can't let him divide us." As they hid behind a tree, watching, the tension grew thick around them. Jake's heart was pounding. Would this work? But just as the figure stepped out of the car, the ominous sound of shattered glass shattered the night. A sense of dread washed over Jake. Maybe they had underestimated him after all. "Get ready," he muttered, gripping Amy's hand tightly, the reality of their situation crashing down like a wave. What awaited them beyond that moment? Would courage prove enough against the darkness they were facing? The figure emerged from the car. A silhouette basked in the harsh glow of the headlights. Jake squinted, caught between hope and terror. It wasn't just any predator lurking in the shadows. It was the man they needed to confront. The rearranging of their fates hinged on his next move. "Stay down," he whispered, his breath barely escaping his lips. The weight of Amy's hand in his was both a comfort and a reminder of the stakes involved. The man stepped into view, exuding an air of authority, like a king overseeing his court. Jake could see the subtle outlines of the man's face, sharp and cold, with a glimmer of menace in his eyes. They had no way of knowing how he'd react. "Let's go," he hissed, urgency bubbling just beneath the surface. Each second felt like a vicious tick of a clock, rushing them closer to an unknown resolution. Amy took a step forward, her resolve unshaken. "I'm ready," she said, her voice steady amidst the chaos. She could have backed out, could have let fear dictate her choices, but she chose to face the lion instead. "Remember, talk about the information," Jake instructed, gripping her hand tightly. "We need him to think she has something meaningful, the kind of leverage that'll make him listen and maybe even negotiate." A wave of tension rolled through the group. A collective breath held as Amy walked towards the glimmer of danger. Jake's heart thundered, each beat begging for this to be a turning point, a moment where fear transformed into empowerment. "Is that her?" the man called out, a smirk creeping onto his lips. "I didn't think you'd come out to play, Amy." His voice was oily, each word slithering around his intentions like smoke. She lifted her chin, fierce and unwavering. "I have something you want," she started, letting the words hang in the air, a bait for the predator. "I know things about your network, secrets that could dismantle everything you've built."
Jake watched as her courage shone brighter than the streetlights around them. He could feel the tension shift, the man's smug demeanor faltering, curiosity sparking in his eyes. But there was also danger, an undercurrent that could turn violent if provoked. "Secrets?" he asked, eyebrows raised. "I'm listening." Sam, hidden behind the trees, exchanged uneasy glances with Jake. The air was electric, the weight of their safety balanced on a knife's edge. "What's the plan, Jake?" he whispered, his voice thick with worry. "Just stay calm. If it goes south—" Jake hesitated, the nerve in his gut tightening. He had no backups, no fail-safe procedures. "If it goes south, we act. We protect Amy at all costs." But as the words left his mouth, the man took a step forward, hunger evident in his posture. "Why should I believe you?" Before Amy could respond, a rustling echoed ominously through the quiet park. It wasn't them. Jake spun around, heart pounding, and found himself staring into the startled eyes of a couple walking their dog. They froze at the sight of the confrontation, and Jake cursed under his breath. "Shit," he murmured. "This is what we didn't want." The moment hung thick in the air, a fragile bubble on the verge of bursting. Could this reveal salvation, or would it do the opposite, drawing them into a whirlwind of chaos? As Amy faced the man, steely determination shining through, Jake felt the edges of panic creeping back in. This was no longer just an act. It was a duel against the darkness threatening their lives. "Listen," she pressed, laser-focused and fierce. "You can keep this hidden, or I can make it disappear." Jake's gut twisted. Courage surged within him, flaring and flickering like a candle against a rushing wind. What would happen next? Would fear cripple them? Or would a spark of bravery light a way out? What if this is just the beginning, he thought, watching the scene unfold with bated breath. What they had started at this moment could either be a new dawn or a fading echo in the night. Would they have the strength to overcome whatever awaited them? The chilling silence hung in the air, a quiet before the storm. Jake felt Amy's resolve pulse like an electric current between them. The man's eyes narrowed, tension palpable as he assessed her every word, searching for a loophole, for weakness. "Interesting proposition," he replied, tone dripping with insincerity. "But you still haven't convinced me." "Let me show you," Amy pressed, a glimmer of defiance in her eyes. "I can set this up where you'll have everything you want, and you'll have the upper hand, I swear." Jake's heart raced, each tick of the clock amplifying the dread. "This is too risky, Amy," he whispered urgently, instinct overriding his concern for secrecy. "Trust me, just trust me," she shot back, fierceness coiling around her words like rope, anchoring them in place. Jake could hardly breathe.
The man smirked, but held his ground, a hunter locked onto his prey. "Very well, let's say I'm interested. But how do I know you're not playing me?" Jake's mind was racing. Could he turn the tide? Perhaps he could entrap the man amidst their surroundings, perhaps bring the situation to light with others around. They were a team, after all. It was time to act like one. "Let's meet," Jake interjected, stepping forward as Amy went rigid. "Tomorrow, at the old warehouse by the docks. You know the place. I can bring what you want." The man's interest piqued, but distrust dripped from his demeanor. "And why would I trust you? You're just a pawn in this exchange." "Not just a pawn."
Jake felt his jaw set, a torrent of raw courage bubbling over. An ally. You don't want to make an enemy out of me. For a moment, the man studied Jake, and then a smirk broke across his face. Oh, this just gets juicier, he chuckled, tilting his head as if appreciating the play on the board. Fine, I'll be there, but don't think for a second I won't come prepared. As he turned to leave, Jake held his breath, uncertain whether they were on the brink of salvation or chaos. Remember, Amy, the man said, hovering just outside the threshold, voice smooth like silk. Don't cross me. And then he was gone into the night, leaving a heavy silence behind. The air shifted, tension ablaze, as they all drifted back to the trunk of their emotions. Jake turned to Amy, fear merging into admiration. What were you thinking? Jake, I know what he wants. I can outsmart him, but I'm not standing by anymore, she breathed, her shoulders drawn back, chin held high. There was a spark within her that Jake hadn't seen before, fierce and unwavering amidst the storm. He knows you now, Amy. You don't have to do this alone. His voice softened, heart aching. I don't want to be afraid anymore, she said, the fire in her voice lighting up the dark corners of the night. We can do this together. Together, it echoed in Jake's mind, a unifying force against fear. Suddenly, Sam spoke up, grounding the moment. You've both shown guts tonight, but we have to be smart. We know where he'll be. That can be an advantage for us. Using their fear as fuel, they huddled together, half strategy, half plan of action, firing back and forth until adrenaline coursed through them. We'll scout the place, find an angle, Jake said, determination wrapping around his voice. If we're careful, we can expose him for who he really is. The night stretched out, dark and dense, but illuminated by a shared sense of purpose. They mapped every route in their minds and every potential escape, the warmth of camaraderie breaking the chill just a bit, banishing the lingering doubts and fears. That night became the turning point. Jake sensed something raw and vibrant in himself and the others, igniting and pushing the boundaries.
With dawn approaching, the fear of battle tempered into a sense of renewed hope, not just to face the man, but the struggles that had held them back. Across town in the pale light, Frank was awake, heart racing. The shadows in his mind had spiraled all night, wondering how his family had fared. He'd felt the urgency to call, tiny hints of joy emerging from the pain of uncertainty. Then a message lit up his phone. We're okay, Dad. We'll be ready. We face this together. Tears pricked at Frank's eyes, an overwhelming sense of pride washing over him. They were becoming a family again, carrying the weight of their struggles and fighting against the darkness. The sun broke over Maplewood, shedding light on hearts that were once heavy with fear. It delivered warmth and promise, a new beginning. They were moving forward, full of determination, ready to reclaim their dreams. They had stepped into the storm, but together they would emerge resilient like never before. Let's finish this, Jake whispered, voice unwavering, resolve ablaze as they drove courageously into the light of forevermore. Now's your turn to show your support. You need to subscribe now so you won't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and keep our family strong. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this transforming journey. And don't wait, not even one more second, to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Remember, only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.